Hi, everybody. It is amazing just how well Zoom is working. Although I really do want to see you live in a person. Uh, it's my pleasure to welcome Alex Tremble. He's a federal career coach, an award-winning speaker, author, leadership expert, 10 years of experience coaching and advising senior level government leaders, and author of two best-selling books, Reaching Senior Leadership and the GPS Guide to Success. Um, uh, Alex, I think you'll find him very engaging. I certainly have in talking with him, and he makes uh, everything you talk about both interesting and fun. It's a great combination. So welcome, Alex. Good to have you here.
Great to be here. Thank you so much, Shane, for having me here. But also thank you for everyone participating today because we know that this is your time. Your time is important. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, great point. So let's talk about how did you get into this line of work? How did this start? It feels like a unique, it feels like a niche.
Yeah, it is. I started my career off overseeing executive leadership development for the Department of the Interior and managing a few different government-wide executive leadership development programs. But what I saw was, as I looked around, there were just so many federal employees, government employees, who wanted to excel into more senior level positions, but they were worried. They were worried if they started learning the skills required to be successful in those positions, like network, like political savvy, that they would become evil. And the weird thing is, again, government employees are so passionate about the mission of their organizations. Sometimes they forget that they should also be just as passionate about their own lives and them and their families.
Did you say become evil? Okay, just checking. Got checked there.
I did.
Okay. Um, so, uh, one interesting is as federal employees may be looking to leave their jobs or maybe advance up in their career. Talk a little bit about that because COVID certainly has changed the dynamic for career moves, whether it be in the federal government or outside of it. And that maybe I'm bundling two questions at one time, but I do hear this conversation from chief human resource officers at agencies and departments. People have changed, say, retirement dates as a result of COVID. So, can you talk a little bit about that?
Definitely. Some of you may have already seen kind of the trailer that me and Shane did, kind of touching on this topic. So I'll just really briefly overview. You're absolutely right. The retirements of a lot of people are actually starting to slow down because the reality is that some people just don't aren't in the financially in the best place because right the stock market and whatnot and so on and so forth. But two, a lot of people are really comfortable working at home. And if they love what they did already, they love the mission of their organization, and they can do it from the safety of their home. A lot of people are actually telling me, look, I was going to retire next year, but I'm going to push my retirement out 5, 6, 7 years. And what this means is that basically means more competition for those individuals who are inside the government trying to move up. And again, you and I can talk about it more if you like, but competition is not a good thing for us. Okay. I'm going to put that on the table. The second half of that question is a lot of people are looking around right now. A lot of people who are hurting, who are in pain, who are financially in strength, um, are looking around and see government employees generally employed still. So the comfort, the security of government jobs are starting to rise to another level in a lot of people's heads. So they're thinking about applying for these types of positions. What does that mean? It means more competition. So really, when we talk about it, when we're talking about career advancement, it's not going to be about do you have the skill or not? Because I promise you, the 99% of the people who are watching this right now has the skills to move up. I can believe that. But you know who also has the skills? People who are going to be buying for those other jobs. For those jobs, it's competition. So what can you do to differentiate yourself from the rest of the crowd? And generally speaking, that
Yeah.
is networking, building strategic relationships, and two, understanding political savvy, how to navigate or those relationships within your organization.
No, that's excellent. And it's interesting in our line of work, you would think that during a pandemic, uh, people would perhaps buy more life insurance. And believe it or not, that's a reasonable conclusion. But the sales are the new policyholders is pretty much flat, and it's because of a competing dynamic for the wallet. People during a pandemic, it's not so much the pandemic, but it's the economic crisis. And so whether it's civilian feds that are staying in business longer, and they have their job, but we don't know, their whole family dynamic could be different. You could have a significant other or another part of your household that
Hmm.
isn't employed. So
Hmm.
it's really interesting. It makes staying in place, I guess, look a little bit more attractive,
So,
if you're a civilian fed, I would think.
I mean, but if I can jump on that topic, that
Yeah, yeah,
when I coach people, my coaching programs, the first thing I teach them and have them work on is a budget. Having a financial sure footing allows you to make
yeah.
these quote unquote more risky job opportunities. You know, we take something that you may not take, but if you don't have that footing, if you don't have life insurance, if you don't have so if something goes wrong with you, you can pick yourself up. If you don't have an emergency plan, um, making making moves that's going to move you upward is always going to take some risk, but it's going to be more risky if you don't have that sure footing. So I'm with you. I think we need to be right now investing in life insurance, yes, to take care of you. Because what if something happens to you? What happens to your family? We need to be investing in our emergency plan because again, that allows you more freedom to make those career jumps if when you see those opportunities come up.
You touched on something earlier, and I want to go back to it a little bit. The idea of networking in a time when now you're working in many cases from home, or certainly the traditional lunch where you might get together with somebody, it's possible, but it's certainly more challenging. Everything you do has to be masked up. I mean, we have to do this, but talk a little bit, because that's a traditional way that you learn about other positions, where you learn about people who are hiring, where you learn about other pieces of, say, the federal government. Um, Talk a little bit, how does that work with COVID?
I think that's a great question. So I'm about to launch a new show where I'm interviewing executives from across the government and nonprofit sector and private sector, and so I'm hoping everyone will listen to it. But the I just interviewed a young lady who is the director of federal outreach for a private sector organization, and her job is to network right now. So I said, how do you do it during COVID? The word that came to her, which I completely in agreement with, is intentionality. Back in the day, yes, sometimes we could just go somewhere and meet someone or be at a networking cocktail and bump into someone. That's much more difficult these days. It's almost impossible. So how do you be more intentional? Being more intentional means understanding where do you want to go in your career, what types of skills, what types of relationships do you need, and then intentionally go identifying people and organizations that will allow you to develop those skills and those relationships, and then intentionally go after those people, build relationships. The Actually, again, there's always a silver, quote unquote, silver lining, right? I remember I spoke to on the phone with my T-Mobile company the other day, and the person was I think she was in Thailand or Vietnam, and her and I struck up a conversation. Then we actually bonded. And how did we bond? Because how did we build a relationship over a phone, over someone talking about T-Mobile? Shared experience. We're all going through this right now. This is a great topic to ask about someone. Hey, how are you doing? How is your family? So many people have lost people. So many people are suffering from depression from being alone. There are so many opportunities to just comfort and be there for someone, or just to ask them how they're doing, that it allows you to build relationships actually much quicker. That shared experience. So again, there's always an opportunity to build strategic relationships. You have to be very intentional and creative.
Yeah, that's excellent, because that is such a struggle. Um, I'm going to go a little bit sideways on this, and continue on that theme a little bit. There are some professions that really require ongoing training. Certainly, some of the technical professions, and then there's traditional folks that want to perhaps get an advanced degree, or they want to uh, find some other hard skills that are going to help them in their career. What what does that look like with COVID? I mean, I guess you don't, do you want to put those plans on hold? Do you want to keep move? How do you keep moving your career forward if skills are something you need?
Again, this is a question that you and I touched on briefly during our pre-interview, and it's really about getting ahead of the game. You're absolutely right. There's a lot of people who are bunkered down, saying, "No, I'm going to wait until things get back to normal." Well, the problem is that if you are waiting for things to get back to normal, and the person over there is saying, "You know what? I'm going to use all this time to read a book. I'm going to use all this time to watch YouTube. I'm going to take an online course." If they're consistently growing and developing themselves at a rate anything faster than what you're doing because you're waiting, now you have no competition. When things quote unquote get back moving again, they're going to be up here while you're just starting off. We use the example of I can beat anyone in a 100 meter race if I get an 80-meter head start. Like I wouldn't say meter, let's say yard. I am on the huskier side, but if you get your head start, you can be even if you're not as fast as the person next to you, if you're not as smart as, even if you don't know, have the same skills and same background as the person next to you, if you start earlier, you can beat that person. And again, that comes down to doing your research, homework, reading a book, read an hour every single day. So many people talk about Maxwell talks about it. Malcolm Gladwell talks about it. Getting a 10,000 hours of development in a particular topic, you will surpass everyone in your realm, all your peers. But it takes a little bit, just an hour a day. You can grow to reach that level.
Excellent, excellent. So, if a Fed is focused on career advancement um, now, what are the top two or three skills uh, that you've seen that you think would be required of them over the next few years?
Again, I really appreciate that you're asking that question. And this is actually what my interview show is tied to and specifically focused on. As I'm going around talking to all these executive leaders, there's two things they're all saying is extremely important as we move into the future. And those two things are exactly what I'd love to focus on: strategic networking and political savvy. And let me explain why. Um, COVID is horrible. It's bad. It's big. No one couldn't imagine it. No one could have imagined it, right? And now, as all these people across the country, across the world, are working together to solve this problem, this will not be the last COVID. Whatever
Right.
problem comes next is going to be big. Whatever next problem comes next will be complex. We live in an interconnected world. I did another interview with the author who oversees a connection. He wrote The Connection Culture, and him and I were talking about it. He said, man, like, can you imagine if we would have had the same situation happen 40 years ago? We wouldn't have had Zoom. We wouldn't be able to stay connected like we are now. And I told him, yeah, you're right. But if this happened 40 years ago, it wouldn't have happened 40 years ago. 40 years ago, we weren't as interconnected as we are as a global economy. Even when, again, something happens in China, it's impacting everyone because we're so connected. The former adjunct general of the Maryland National Guard, I interviewed her recently, and she talks about the same exact thing. We have to be focused on building these strategic relationships and having those relationships in place so that when things do go wrong, this is from a work standpoint, when things do go wrong, you know who to reach out to, and you have trust, so that they trust you to make whatever decision you're making is for the best and not only your own selfish reasons, and you can trust them to do the same.
Yeah, I really liked what you said about building. How do you build a new relationship in an online environment? I noticed, as for example, we as an organization dealt with COVID. We had leaders, and I already had relationships with them, right? I already knew them. And so when we go into a Zoom world, it's not ideal, but it's that connection's already been made. It's already been established. So what would it? I guess you already mentioned the tip. How do you establish that kind of rapport, which is an enabler to get things done, with somebody you've never met before, but you have to have a relationship with them. Yeah.
Again, you are asking some really great questions, and these are the questions that I consistently get from people who interact with me. And I would give two quick little tidbits I love using. The first is from, the acronym from. When you're trying to build, if you're someone new to building these relationships and you're building a relationship with someone absolutely new, the first thing you want to talk about is F, where they're from and their family. Oh, hey, you're from North Dakota. I'm from North Dakota. You have six sisters. I have six sisters. I have three sisters. And this funny thing is, whatever they say, you can actually tie it back to yourself because you want to build this familiarity that you guys have a connection. So if they say, "Oh, I have six sisters," and you have six sisters, then great, you have a connection. If they say they have six sisters and you have one sister, hey, how was that? I had one sister. What was it like to have six sisters? If you have no sisters, hey, I've never had any sisters. What was that like? You're always looking for ways to tie yourself to that individual and their experiences. The second thing, after you talk about family and where they're from, is R, so recreation. So what do you do for fun?
Hmm.
Get them smiling. Oh, you like to hike? I like to hike. You like to hike? I've never been hiking. I'm afraid of it. How did you get into it? Again, you're still looking for ways to tie yourself to that person's experiences. After recreation, then you talk about O. O is occupation. And you notice that O only came after those first two. This is not the first thing you want to talk about because again, then where people get these informational interviews, where people get these networking opportunities wrong, is that they're typically focused on that the occupation. What do you do? How can I get something from you? And that's not a relationship. And at the same time, if you focus on those things, you're never going to learn everything about that person in one interaction. The only purpose of that first interaction is to get a second interaction. So you need that person to like you and want to talk to you. So after you get to the O, after the O, then you could talk about M. M is money or otherwise brass tacks. I'm looking for an internship. I'm looking for a detail, looking for an opportunity. Do you know anyone? Can you connect with this person? But again, that doesn't come until after all those other things have been discussed and you built some sort of rapport and relationship with that person. I'll be honest with you. I used to have people still come to me asking me for things. Can you connect with this person? Can you do that? Can you do this? The reality is I don't know you. My name, my reputation is really important to me. If I send you to someone and you're not the right person, you're not morally correct or ethically, then the next person who I want to send to someone, they're not going to trust me as much. So it's really important that I have that rapport with you and understand what type of person you are. So the from acronym is something that's really easy for people who don't network on a consistent basis. If you're a more experienced networker, another one that you can use, and I actually go over this in my networking course, which I'm hoping to share something with you guys later, is the PPF. What are their professional goals? What are their personal goals? And what are their financial goals? If you can learn those three things and help those person achieve those three things, you're moving on. You're moving on the tracks to build a very trustworthy relationships because they know that you're trying to help them. You're not after something. You're actually trying to help them reach whatever goal that they may have.
That's excellent. So we are very close. We're at a take questions period of time now. So why don't we do a couple of questions? This is a good one. What kind of soft skills does it take to be promoted into leadership roles?
So, what's funny is when people, they call it the soft skills, right? But what I recently heard is they call it now executive skills, because in order to be an executive, these are the skills you need to have. So again, I'm trying to move away from soft skills now into executive skills.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
have
Makes
skills like
sense.
you. So I think that one of the first things you need to be able to do is when we talk about executive skills is communication. At the end of the day, that is the most important thing you can learn how to do is communicate clearly. I can tell you that most times that I'm in discussions or coaching or training, and there's problems brewing within an organization, problems brewing within an office or within a team, it's generally focused on communication. Individuals either talking past each other, not appreciating another person's point of view or how they're seeing it, and maybe there's this little exercise I do, but basically, um, when we communicate, we forget sometimes that we are communicate from we have a lot more context to what we're saying than the other person, because we know what we're thinking in our head. We're bringing all these different experiences to the table as we think and we say something. The other person didn't hear what we had going on in our head. The other person has no idea the extra thoughts that were being put into place as we said. So they understand it completely different way than what we're saying it sometimes. So being very watchful of when you speak to someone, make sure you provide them context. And if they don't understand, be very intentional, making sure that that you find a different way to explain it to them. If I can stay on this for one more second, what I would
Yeah,
say
please.
is, generally speaking, thank you, Shane. I kind of get rolling when I do.
No. Keep going. You're great. I like it. It's
So,
nice.
so generally speaking, most people, when they communicate, they say something and they expect the other person to understand it. Period. I said this, you understand it, and if you don't understand it, then you need to figure it out. Um, we actually asked this question of a leadership course I was leading at the VA, and we said, raise your hand if you think it's the manager's job to, or the leader's job to effectively communicate. And almost everyone raised their hand. And then they say, okay, what about the employee? What about the both of them at the same time? Who has more responsibility? And they said, but mostly the manager. And actually, sorry, I got complete backwards. Mostly, most people said it was the employee's job to understand. And the reality is, it's the manager's job. As a manager, as a leader, if I can say something and you don't understand it, I need to find another way to make sure you understand it. Whether that be writing it out, whether that be using a different example, whether that be using diagrams. Now, again, at some point there comes a point where I've tried all these different times, it's not working. Now we need to do something else. But don't, as a leader, you should not give up so quickly in communicating. Neil deGrasse Tyson, I love him. He is the rock star in his field. Why is the rock star? Is it because he's the smartest man who does his job? I'm not an astrophysicist. I'm not a physicist like him. But I can bet he's not the smartest man in the world doing his job. What makes him so effective, what makes him so famous, is that he can clearly communicate with the masses. He can make people who are not as smart, like myself, understand very complex challenges and issues.
I'm sitting here wondering if you can help me communicate with my kids. Is that part of this? I don't. Here's a really great question. Excuse me. How do I go about finding a mentor in federal service? I know that in my career I had a few mentors, and it was really I'm sorry. It was really helpful. Talk about that a little bit. How do you find a mentor? And so I guess that would be just in general, but also today in COVID world.
Yeah, no, look, I can tell you right now, honestly, 100%, I would not be where I am without the mentors I've had, period. That's not even a question. So how important and critical mentors are to your future, your life, can't be understated. I can't be overstated. So I would say, again, the first thing is tying yourself to the same process as networking, right? Before you look for a mentor, you need to understand what you're looking for. Where do you want to go in your life? What do you want to be in your career? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of husband? What kind of wife? All those things, once you identify those things, again, I talk about this in my networking training. Once you identify those things, now you have a direction. Now you're saying, I want to be this type of leader. I'm going to find someone who is that type of leader. And then I'm going to reach out to that person and try to build a relationship. Now let's just go down just that one path right quick, just for an elongated example. If I want to be this type of leader, I'm going to go to mentor, let's call him Jerry, right? I'm going to go to Jerry and I want to build a relationship with Jerry. Jerry's an executive. I am a proponent of always going for people who are exceptional. I don't want someone who's average at their job, because if they're average, they're going to teach me average skills. I want someone who's exceptional, because if they're exceptional, they're going to teach me exceptional skills. So that's my tilt. So I'm going to go for Jerry. Jerry's an executive. He's an exceptional executive. So how am I going to build a relationship with him? Well, the first thing you're going to do is ask him if you can just spend 15 minutes talking to him. Now, why 15 minutes? For a number of reasons. First, it's short. It's really difficult for someone to say they don't have 15 minutes. And the reality is, if they like you, they can always give you another 15 minutes. They can always give you 45 minutes. I actually did this the other day with, there's a famous international speaker who I reached out to on LinkedIn. As it, might as well reach out to him. Reached out to him. He responded the same exact day. We scheduled a 15-minute call that same exact day. That call went 45 minutes, and he offered to be my mentor, be a mentor of mine. So that 15 minutes, that's really just to open up the door, right? So the second component of this is that you have to ask, right? And that's probably the first component, right? But asking is so much easier than what people believe. The reality is that we all do this kind of cost benefit analysis when we decide whether we're going to do anything, especially network and kind of meet with someone who's more senior than us. And the reality is that most people will do this analysis and say, well, this person's at this level. They're such a, they're influential, they're powerful. That means they must be busy. They got things to do. They're never going to want to spend any time on me. So why do I need to waste my time to even ask this person? And, it sounds like a logical explanation. I mean, I could see how someone would think that. But they're forgetting a variable in that calculation, though. The variable is, what does it mean? What is the cost of saying no? So they've thought about the cost of saying yes. The cost is their time. Their time is really important. They're not going to do it. But what's the cost of saying no? See, people at that more senior level and a very successful level in their careers, they like to seem like good people. They don't want to seem like an a-hole. I mean, I'm sorry if I shouldn't use that word. They want to seem like a very inspirational, nice, generally nice person. And what would they look like if someone wanted to learn from them and asked them for 15 minutes of their time and they said no? Now, that's hard. That's a psychological barrier for a lot of people because they don't want to look or feel like they're not trying to help someone else out. So actually, the chances of you getting a yes are much higher than what you may think, simply because of the word guilt. And I am not, I'm not opposed to using that when I need to build a relationship.
Yeah, and most people are flattered and complimented that a person would want to spend time with them in such an environment. I think that's wonderful. Here's an interesting question. What did PPF stand for in relationship building?
PPF stands for their personal goals. So the first P is personal. Second P is professional. The F is financial. So the personal goals is I want to reach, I want to be a good father. I want to be, I want to be a coach this soccer team, whatever their personal goals may be. Professional goals, I want to be an executive over here. I want to be the solicitor over here. I want to rise to this level over here. Professional goals. And then financial goals is, look, I want to make $80,000. I want to make $100,000. I want to make blah, 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 blah. Whatever those I want to be comfortable. I want to have a network or whatever. And if you understand what those goals are, now you can start brainstorming ideas to help them reach those goals. I used to have not used to, but years back, a friend on LinkedIn asked me to help them with a project, and they were starting their own magazine. And so they wanted to find a whole list of free developmental opportunities for people who are subscribing to their magazine. And so what I did was I went through the grueling task of actually reaching out to everyone in my LinkedIn at that point. That was a lot of people. And just asking them, hey, I'm helping a friend with this. Do you mind? Do you know of any free developmental resources? And would you mind sending them to me? Actually, I ended up with over 300 different free developmental tools that people could use. And so I took that information, put it into a nice spreadsheet, shared it with my friend. She was extremely thankful because I helped her with her goal of her magazine. She later on published 3 of my articles within her magazine. But also through that process, I ended up meeting 2 different very key people. One person who managed an international organization who then published another 2 of my articles and had me on a board for a conference they were planning. And then another organization who was an international organization who then looked into me and saw what I liked or what I was doing, and then actually gave me an award for what I was doing. Now, I could have gone into this situation saying, oh, I'm not going to help this person until they help me or something like that. But I honestly believe that as you help someone, there's so much opportunity for you to just learn new things and be connected with new people. But also, I just feel like for some reason, it's always worked out. I'm actually reading the book right behind me, Give and Take. Great book. And basically, the author makes the point that the people who are most successful in their careers, there are givers who are always giving of themselves. There are takers who are always taking from other people, and then there are matchers, people who I will only give you what you give me. And he makes the argument that people who are the most successful in their careers are givers, people who give of themselves. One of the key figures he talks about is Abraham Lincoln. If you look at his history, he gave a lot prior to becoming a president. I guess the same as becoming a president. But also the people who do the worst in their careers are givers because they're giving, 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 and they never get to do anything themselves. So what I'm looking forward to learning more into as I read this book is, what's the difference? Where's that balance? You want to give of yourself, but you don't want to give of yourself until you can't do anything. So it's a really good book so far.
Yeah, excellent, excellent. Here's an interesting question, maybe difficult to answer, but it's intriguing. What is a respectful way to ask a colleague or supervisor for a referral to another agency position? I have no idea what you're going to say to this one.
I have no idea what I'm going to say to this one. Um, the
No,
way,
that's what I'm looking forward to hearing what you're going to say.
um, in that situation, I would say the way I would advise someone to deal with that situation first is to prep people. If you're looking for opportunities, um, you can prep people so when you say something, they're not surprised. So it's not that I'm looking for another job over here, but hey, I've been looking to develop my skills. What do you think I should do? Or hey, I just took this training. I'm really looking forward to becoming a leader at some point. So if you start intentionally making those statements, you're feeding ideas into those individuals' heads. When you come to a point when you want to get a referral reference to someone, they're not surprised. It's not jarring. And so when you get to that point and you're looking for someone to give you a referral, I think if the question was a little more specific, I could say, first, are you looking for a referral for a specific job? Like, are you looking for a reference? If you're looking for a reference, then I think that's really when you can do is say, hey, would you mind applying to this job? Would you mind giving me a reference? And if you're busy, again, I love this. If you're busy, look, I can write the reference for you. You edit it. And edit and do whatever you gotta do. I love writing my own stuff because I make sure the ideas that I want to get out there are out there. I'm building my own brand as I write things for people. Another question you can ask when you're looking for a referral, if you're just looking for another person, is say, you know, I really respect you and what you've done in your career. And I love to ask you a question. Who do you know that I should know? See, I learned this question from actually John Maxwell in his book. Again, I'm a super avid reader, always learning. And this is what we talked about earlier, always learning, always growing. But this question is a question I love asking now because the way you're phrasing it, who do you know that I should know? It's not just asking for some random person off the street. It actually requires that person to think through their Rolodex, think through their connections and say, well, yeah, this is a great person, but I don't know if you need to know him. You know what, this person over here, this is the person who you need to know. And then you don't stop there. Would you mind making a connection? And again, asking is crucial. I actually
Yeah.
remember I was reaching out to a mentor, and I'll wrap it right now. Reaching out to a mentor about this new course I was having, I created, and she's this big marketing person. And the entire time we talked about it for an hour, and she never offered to help me. I was just really surprised. At the end, I said, "Hey, do you think you can help me at all?" She said, "Oh yeah, sure." All I had to do was ask.
Yeah.
You can't forget to ask.
So we have a little bit less than 1 minute, and uh, let's wrap it up with an interesting question, but we'll make it a short version of this. If you had to pick one tip that you would give to federal employees right now, what would that be?
Honestly, the one tip I would give to everyone is use this time to build relationships, build your network. People are much more likely to do things for people who they like. build these relationships and real relationships, not relationships where you're just using people. And I think I'm
Right.
really glad that you asked that question because you guys have gone through, WAEPA has gone through the process of getting everyone here a book. But what I want to do is I'll kind of offer you all a gift for being here today. Um, I've I have this Reaching Senior Leadership, strategic, sorry, strategic networking course. It costs $479. What I want to do is I want to give it to the first 5 people at no cost who gets it today. Just because, again, I am with you. Strategic relationship building and networking is going to be crucial for moving forward. I put the link in the chat, and all you have to do is use the code WAEPA 2020.
Okay, great. Can I come too?
You
Um,
can. I'll get
the
you in. I know a guy.
Well, Alex, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. As you can see up here, we are going to be giving away a copy of your book in ebook format, and there'll be an email after the event that people can use to download your book. Uh, Alex, it's been absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much, and now we're gonna to everybody listening, we're gonna go on a 15-minute break, reconvene at 10:30 Eastern. Alex, thanks again. Pleasure.
Thank you, Shane. Talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.